political reporter for the Louisville Courier-Journal. Mr. Gerth, it's nice to see you. Thanks for joining us this evening.
Hey, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
So I know that I am reading too much into the Galt House thing. I have to be. Can you tell me I'm reading too much into that?
You're reading too much into it.
Thank
It's
Joe Gerth is one of the most skeeviest persons I have ever seen. I mean, Joe Gerth, just the way he moves his mouth. Isn't it weird?
Paul says that yes, he was a big fan of Ayn Rand when he was younger. That she got him into reading Dostoevsky.
He also sounds like he's got all that spit. He's got all that spit. He'll swallow, Joe. Swallow that spit before you start talking. Weird guy, man. He's a lying piece of shit. I have no idea why anybody listens to anything this trailer park white trash douchebag has to say.
And others, and that he's always been a fan. But it's a hotel in downtown Louisville where a lot of people hold events like this. It's a big ballroom, and it's
all right. Well,
logical that he would choose this location.
If there is some sort of like giant chocolate fountainhead, or if they hand out copies of like atlases or anything like that, or if there's pronounced shrugging, I expect you to come back and eat your words. But
I will tweet you immediately, and you can invite me back on. I'll happy to come.
Perfect.
He's gonna tweet her immediately. He's so funny. What a fucking joke. What a piece of shit. I can't even stand watching another second of this uninformed, anti-Gatewood Gatewood piece of shit. Okay, let's talk about what the media's responsibility is. The media needs to tell us, we the public, all the information that we need to know, all the news that's fit to print. And so they need to give us all the information. They don't do that. If it bleeds, it leads. If it's gory, it's a story. They only want the sensational bullshit. So 5 years ago, we had this case where Steve Nunn, a former state representative, had murdered Amanda Nunn, his ex-wife, who had filed for a restraining order and yet still broke through the restraining order and killed her. He murdered her. So there's blood. There's blood on the scene. It's a horrible tragedy. It's very sad that that happened, and it's good that that crisis was turned into legislation. Now, your Joe Gerths, your corporate medias, they don't give a shit. They hear a story like that and they say, oh my God, we got to get down there. We can't wait until, that's a good news story. We got to hurry up and get this news, get a picture, maybe with a stab, a knife in her neck or something, just lots of blood, right? The gorier, the wrecked, the worst images possible, splash it on the front page and then sell a bunch of newspapers. That's all they care about. They don't care actually about informing you. The main thing that the corporate media wants to do is sell advertisements. So if you look at the media as a business, so you look at the media as a business, which it is, they want to make as much money for their investors. What are they selling? What are they selling? So the advertisers, they want a big audience. If I'm Nike, I want the biggest audience that I can get. I want, especially young men who's going to buy my shoes, right? So you want to target, demographic, and you want to get as many people to see your product as possible. So what are newspapers selling? They're selling you. They're selling you, the people. The bigger the audience, the more money, the more advertisements that they can get from their advertisers. That's all they give a shit about, is how many people are reading their papers. And it doesn't matter if they're reading their papers, because it's good sound journalism that always tells the truth, that always parses through the policy debate to figure out which candidate is going to do what, to actually give people the entire perspective of who our candidates are, their life, and their policy questions. So what kind of governor, what kind of treasurer, what kind of secretary of state will you be? That's what the media should do, is give you the truth. They don't do that. If it bleeds, it leads. If it's gory, it's a story. They will rush to Amanda Nunn's dead body excited. That's how sick these fuckers are. Once they've been on the, reporting on newspapers for such a long time, they actually get excited about these stories. Oh my God, that's a good story. Hurry up, let's go. Now, Joe Gerth is, he wrote a bunch of lies about me, and I'm going to go ahead and put the links. There's the 9 lies of Joe Gerth, and then I actually got a 40-page, Spalding University, what happened in my 2 years. So get the whole picture. Get the entire picture. I was, $60,000 was stolen from me. I had been sexually molested at Spalding University by a professor, and, and I was bullied. And so, this is, for them to say, well, you got mad and you made that phone call and, said you wanted a boxing match, right? Yeah, that happened. Absolutely. And I don't regret it. I'm glad that I, stood up and spoke up for myself. But it wasn't the first thing. It's, okay, this is bullshit. This shouldn't have happened. Now what do I need to do about it? It got me to that point, and I could have got to that point without actually making the phone call, but I didn't have anybody that, gave a shit. So let's go back to the timeline, okay? So let's take a look at the timeline of events. First, you have Jack Conway, who's been the presumptive nominee. He got all those endorsements 5 months ago. In fact, if Jesus Christ himself was to jump in the race, the John Yarmouth, the AFL-CIO, Patrick Hughes, all these assholes will still back Jack Conway over Jesus Christ. So that was 5 months ago. He'd already secured the nomination. Jeff Young was talking about jumping in the race. He already had a lieutenant governor, a running mate, and then all of a sudden they had a falling out. And so now he didn't have a running mate. And now the media, who had been ignoring him the whole time, they said the only question they cared about, well, did you get that running mate? Hey, did you get a new running mate? When are you going to get that new running mate? And that was the only question that they gave a shit, because they wanted him not to run. If he didn't get a running mate, he'd been out of the race. So he got a running mate, yours truly, and then as soon as, within a week of the January 27th deadline, Joe Gerth writes a hit piece on me. So just look at Joe Gerth's words the week before. He says, oh, Jeff Young, what about Jeff Young? He's irrelevant. Who gives a shit? We're not going to even talk about him. He doesn't matter. And then a week later, oh, wait a second. He does matter. And not just him, but his lieutenant governor matters too. So the reason for Joe Gerth's hit piece on me, it was the same reasons that Paula Marie had got on Jeff Young's Facebook page and was sitting there saying, Jeff, I care about you and I just don't want to see you get involved in something. But she didn't care. She had already wanted to vote for Jack Conway. So she was lying. She was lying through her teeth. And the point of what Joe Gerth, Paul Marie, what they wanted to show, since, Jeff Young was irrelevant, who cares about Jeff Young? Well, now he's in the race. Now he has a lieutenant governor. Now he has a running mate. So now, we have to acknowledge him. Well, we're going to disqualify him by saying, well, he picked a bad lieutenant governor. He don't make good decisions. So, before we were saying he's irrelevant, now we're saying he's stupid. And it reminds me of the Gandhi quote. Gandhi, he says, at first they laugh at you, and then they fight you, and then you win. I would say the majority of Kentuckians do not know the other 7 lieutenant governor candidates. Probably don't even know the treasurer candidates, secretary of state. The Kentucky voters, the 10% that do vote, are low information voters. And what do you think about them guns? I'm pro-gun. Okay, I'm voting for him. He said he's for. I had one guy in Letcher County ask me, what do I believe with senior citizens fishing? And I said, what, you're 80 years old? He said, yeah. And I was like, man, you've lived your life. Go fishing. What the fuck? You're stopping senior citizens from hunting and fishing. They got to pay some $50 license to go. No, you can go ahead and do it. And, he said he would vote for me. And I would honor that agreement. I would absolutely, he was, an adorable old man, and I'm glad I talked to him. Because that is bullshit. 80 fucking years old being harassed because he wants to go fishing. You lived your life. Go fishing. So if you look at the narrative, if you look at the timeline, for several months, Jeff Young is irrelevant. And then when he jumped in, he's still irrelevant. Then they, do a hit piece on me with 9 lies. And it was a hit piece. When I first met Joe Gerth, I met him at the Realtors Forum in Lexington. And he didn't have any questions for me or Jeff Young. He was standing next to Adam Beam. And Adam Beam immediately took a disliking to me because I said I wasn't going to comment on anything. And then I even mentioned to Adam Beam, well, what if there's a dead body? Would you cover our campaign if there's a dead body? Adam Beam, making our campaign a joke, he says, why don't you go from city to city with the cardboard cutout of Jack Conway? If you have a cardboard cutout of Jack Conway, then maybe that'll stir up, some interest, and then you'll get some coverage. Well, you're making our campaign sound like a fucking joke. And then I said, well, if there was a dead body, you'd probably cover that. And he was like, no. Yeah, the fuck if you wouldn't. You would definitely cover if there's a dead body. There was no dead body, and they still went after me. So after that Realtors Forum, I went up to Joe Gerth and Adam Beam, who were patiently waiting for Matt Bevin. They couldn't wait to get, a few sound bites from Matt Bevin, right? Like the kiss-ass sycophantic, parroting lazy reporters that they are. And when they were waiting for Matt Bevin, I went up to him and I gave him a Frederick Douglass quote. I told him that when you deprive the people of a speaker, you're not just telling the speaker that he can't say what he wants to say, you're also depriving the listeners of possibly hearing a good idea. And it came out so smooth, I was so confident, and after I had said that, Joe Gerth made a sort of passing comment about, you two make a good couple, or some shit like that. So, what does that mean? Jeff Young's a good, sincere, honest man, and here, well, you clearly are a good, nice man too, so fuck you, nice man, and fuck you, nice man. I was real pissed about it. I wanted to confront him. Jeff Young told me not to. I just want to confront him about the media, about how they don't care. It's only sensationalism, and how he shitted on Gatewood his entire life. Gatewood's in his entire life. Joe Gerth wrote an article saying that Gatewood liked to say that he was a perennial candidate because Kentucky had perennial problems. Gatewood didn't like to say that. Gatewood was forced to say that because Joe Gerth of the world kept trying to disqualify his campaign by calling him a perennial candidate. You know who else is a perennial candidate? Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan. Joe Gerth was shitting on Gatewood, did not give a crap about him. Here's an article that was in the 2011 race for governor, and it was the Nicole Bartlett was blasting the Courier-Journal and the Herald Leader for still treating Gatewood like an asshole. Now, the argument that Joe Gerth and these political operatives will say is that we don't have $1 million. We don't have $1 million, so we can't get any TV ads, therefore our campaign is shot. Fuck them. So that's their argument, is that if you don't have enough money or if you're not polling high enough. Well, in 2011, Gatewood Gabarth had more money and he was polling number 1 in all the polls. And still, the media were fucking dicks. Gatewood Gabarth told us the truth. And for some reason, a good, honest, sincere man who tells us the truth disqualifies you from politics. They want bullshitters. People get up there and just bullshit about whatever. About nothing. Nonsense. About right to work and Common Core and Obama and blah, blah, blah. Shut the fuck up. So, WKYT television in Lexington found Brashear with 39%, Galbraith had 35%, and then Williams had 26% of the vote. So Galbraith was beating Williams within 4 percentage points of Steve Brashear. And in fact, David Williams had said, if you're not going to vote for me, vote for Gatewood. So David Williams said, if you didn't like me, go with Gatewood. So what the article neglected to mention is the fact Gatewood Galbraith has polled in first place ahead of Steve Brashear in 5 additional polls. The Hazard Herald, the State Journal, Frankfurt, the Sentinel News, Fox 56, Lexington, and a second WKYT poll. Each of the above described polls shows Williams clearly in third place. The Courier-Journal further denotes skepticism when characterizing such polls as non-scientific. Yet there is no justifiable reason to believe that these polls are more or less of an indicator of the pending race than any other poll. Joe Gerth further adds, Galbraith has traditionally done well in such polls, but then finished elections in single digits. Gatewood Galbraith has no knowledge of any time in his previous races in which he has enjoyed first place in such polls. And the article doesn't show its source for such a statement. Joe Gerth just makes shit up. He just makes it up, pulls it out of his ass and said, he wants everybody to believe that Gatewood Galbraith is a loser, don't fucking vote for him, and he pulled out all the stops to make sure that Gatewood was getting fucked over. Joe Gerth does not tell the truth. He picks the people that he wants to fucking go with and fucks over the good people. He's not a fucking poor person. He's not one of the 1 million poor people in Kentucky who needs a good progressive leader that actually gives a shit about them. The last thing I want to talk about is Walter Cronkite and Fred Tuttle. They asked Walter Cronkite, what's the news? How do you determine what is news and what isn't? And Walter Cronkite says the news is whatever I say it is. So he dictated the news. He gets to highlight and point out whatever issues he wants to point out. He is the news. Okay, so Fred Tuttle is the man with the plan. He's the man with the plan. In 1998, he ran on the Republican ticket for U.S. Senate. And he ran against a carpetbagger, and he actually won because he was just asking local knowledge questions. He was asking McMullen, the guy he was running against, how to correctly pronounce the names of several Vermont towns. Correctly answer Fred's question, how many teats a Holstein got? And he said 6, but the correct answer is 4. And then he won. He defeated McMullen by 10 percentage points. He won the primary with 55% of the vote. And then immediately Tuttle endorsed the incumbent Democrat, Patrick Leahy. So he wound up winning the Republican nomination, and even though he had endorsed the other candidate the whole time, and when they said, why did you endorse the Democrat? And he says, well, he knows how many teeth or how many tits are on a cow. He knows. And he still wound up getting 22% of the vote. Now, the media lesson with Fred Tuttle was that his campaign strategy was that he was just going to let the media come to him, and then he'd get his message out that way. The media come talk to him, then he gets his message out that way. So a good, responsible media who actually wants their readers to be informed of all the information and knowledge that they need to know, all the news that's fit to print, was working in Vermont. But we don't have anything like that here in Kentucky. Not at all. In fact, it's probably one of the best ways to stay anonymous. Run for governor, run for lieutenant governor. None of them will really give a shit unless they can find some fodder to fuck you over. When I was working on the Cardinal, there were several interesting things when I was working there. Because Ray Hodge, she come in and try to fucking jab me too, right? Try to hit me up a couple times on Twitter. And it was fascinating because they would designate who was going to talk about what issues a day or two in advance. So that means if there was a meteor, if there's a big fire, right, they were dictating what the news was going to be. I even asked the head of the person, Bailey Pulliam, about if there was a scandal in the president, James Ramsey's office, a sex scandal, would you say something about that? They said no. So a sex scandal could take down a president of the United States of America, but not U of L. And that was just a hypothetical. My point was, if there was something that he had done that was wrong, would we say something about it? And very quickly, the director of the student newspaper at U of L said, no, we're not going to cover that. Well, now James Ramsey is under, sort of a media attack about how much he's got like this big, $1 billion fund that he gets all this money from. And he also gets, like a 6-figured salary, like $300,000 or something. So he's making a ton of money. He's got a lot of money that's coming into his coffers. And, I'm not saying that there's any wrongdoing at all. My only point is that when there is power and when there's a lot of money, there's plenty of room for corruption to happen. And so they were against it. This is the organization that, Ray Hodge had actually came out from. So, fuck you, Ray Hodge, and fuck you, Joe Sonka. Fuck you, Joe Gerth, you low-life piece of shit. So the final thing that I want to mention, so first, Joe Gerth has this narrative, Jeff Young is irrelevant, fuck him, and then, all of a sudden he's got a running mate, so now he is statistically significant, but maybe they can just play the Jack Conway game and ignore him too. And the reason why I know that Joe Gerth is a liar is because I know what his intentions were. He wasn't curious about me. He didn't ask me where I was from, what I was about, what my ideas were. He didn't give a shit about any of that stuff. The only thing he gave a shit about was when I told him that Frederick Douglass quote he wanted to show off for his friend Adam Beam and say, oh, look at these two assholes, fuck them. And that was in February. And so, you know, immediately he's already like making fun of us and shit, treating us like fucking dickheads. So, you know, I think that was just something that he had put on Young, and then he was trying to put that on me. And then when he wrote the article, he had called me, and I shouldn't have said a fucking word. I should have just said, suck my dick, bitch, and just left it at that. You want to quote that? All right, suck my dick, bitch. Right? And you want to write fucking bad shit about me? You want to write, you know, a fucking hit piece and just paint me up in the worst possible light possible? So when he asked the question, he's a real dick. Hey, just Joe Gerth from Carl Urinal. And, you know, we heard this allegation that you done this thing, and this is actually what Joe Gerth sounds like. You done this allegation thing, and do you think that's fitting for a lieutenant governor? It's a leading question. It's a leading question. Instead of saying, is it true? What had actually happened? Why don't you tell me your perspective? He was sitting there saying, you did that bad thing. You know you did it. Tell me. And so I uttered off a couple sentences. Give him, here's what happened. Breach of contract. They were bullying. I got molested, and they were bullying me. You know, so that's the fact that professors at Spalding University can sexually harass their students is ridiculous. They don't give a shit, and I don't know why. I don't know why. I feel like part of it has to do with me being a man, being a male. Oh, you can't be harassed. You can't be sexually molested. Yeah, she has. The professors believe in 100% compliance. So everything they say, you got to do exactly as they say, or else you're going across, you know, you're shaking things up. And so when I'm in her office Saturday, just me and her, she's sitting there pointing over at the computer. Now you got to click on this, you got to click on this, and just kept rubbing my leg, She had no right to put her hands on me. She was in a position of authority. It was very uncomfortable and disgusting, and I felt like I couldn't say anything about it. In fact, I was going to keep that a secret, get my degree, and then just go on with my life. But instead, they want to fuck me over. So yes, I'm going to point out the bullshit that, you know, that I had to go through. It was just me and her in the office, so, you know, it's my word versus hers. She'll probably fucking deny it, but I think that if you pressed her, you would actually see that what I'm saying is the truth. So, and I had actually mentioned these things, not as reporting it, but I had said that these things happen. At no point did the dean or the assistant dean or the professors, anybody that had mentioned it, think that it was a crime. Oh, what? A woman put his hands on a man? Oh, that's not a crime. Who gives a shit? I paid $60,000 for a Spalding University education, get straight A's, and then at the very end, at the fucking finish line, they just want to fucking fuck me over just because I didn't want to be bullied. I had an idea of a topic I wanted to talk about because I want to make education interesting and exciting. I want to intrigue and pique curiosity so they'll want to learn history. And so I want to talk about the 1855 Know-Nothing riots, about the immigration period in the 1800s, and she flipped flipped her lid. It was over the 1855 Know-Nothing riots, and if you read the article, they will say that there was they would not say what the incident was. Why did I get kicked out? Why did I get kicked out? There's 3 strikes. Ask them what 3 strikes they're talking about. First one, I got robbed, so I showed up late, and then the other one, I showed up on time, but she said I was late, and then the 3rd strike is that I want to talk about the 1855 Know-Nothing riots. It's a dumb fucking reason. They bullied me. They were lazy. In fact, when she called, you're done. You're done, right? That's what the dean, she calls me up. She can harass me. That's okay, right? You're done. And then when she said that she was done, she's like, oh, I don't have time for all this. Yeah, I don't have time for this. I woke up 7 in the morning, or 4 o'clock in the morning. Actually, I just got robbed, so I picked up and I moved. How hard? It's not easy to just pick up and move. It's not easy just to pick up and move. And I did that for Spalding University because I was serious about my education. I could not go to that first day because my back door was broken and I still had stuff that was in my house. So if I would have gone that first day, the first strike, if I would have gone the first day, I would have came back and all my stuff would have been gone. It's Maslow's hierarchy. I'm not safe. I'm not secure. I need to get in a safe, secure spot. And then once I get a safe, secure spot, then, I can do the thing. So I was given 4 days to move. And I picked up from Portland, Louisville, and I moved to Muldrow. And then after I did that, because I had signed a year contract, the guy was going to sue me. The guy who, there was cockroaches in the place and all this other bullshit, but he was going to sue me to get that extra 10 months worth of rent because I picked up. So basically, the person who robbed me, Spalding University, they totally fucked up my life. They fucked me over completely. Absolutely ruined me because I had an idea of my own that I want to talk about, the 1855 Know Nothing riots. I do think a little differently. I believe in freedom, and so these Nazis who believe in 100% compliance, they couldn't work with me. I could work with the Nazi, but the Nazi needs me to be submissive and subordinate to them in order for them to understand, you know, to think that this is how we were going to work. Well, I don't operate that way. I don't operate that way. I'm not beneath anybody, and in fact, that's what Spalding University told me at orientation, that it was going to be co-teaching, equality. It was my classroom just as much as it was her classroom, but at no point in time did I ever feel comfortable or safe in that classroom because she was a lunatic. She was a complete psycho. She wasn't nice. She wasn't friendly. She was a bully. Every time she'd make me do this warm-up exercise, I'd get something done. Oh, that's no good. Well, I'm not really done. And then every time I talked to her, when I talked to her about that idea that I want to teach, she immediately, no, you're not talking about that. Well, I worked all night on it, and it's something I'm passionate about. It's relevant to the curriculum. It's on the test, on the AP exam. But she's just a piece of shit, and just fuck you is what she was telling me. And that's bullshit. That's not fair. That's not right. So, Joe Gerth, go fuck yourself, man. You're a white trash piece of shit. You have no idea what the truth is. You shat on Gatewood his entire fucking life. And then Mitch McConnell, you take him serious. So what, you gotta suck coke dick? You gotta have fucking millions in the coffers? But people like Joe Gerth is the reason why we have the shitty political establishment, the reason why we have a 90% people don't go vote. We only have a 10% turnout rate. Why we got 1 million people in poverty. Why we're number one in pollution, number one in child deaths and child abuse cases, number one for cancer. There's a reason for that. And it's the education, and it's definitely the fucking media. The media isn't telling you the truth because they're a bunch of corporate whores who just want to sell newspapers. They don't care about telling you the truth. They just want to get a titillating, sensational story in order to pass out as many newspapers out to the public as possible so that their advertisers are happy. That's the people that they give a shit about. The corporations, the advertisers. Not you, not Joe Public. That's some true news. Subscribe. The final thing I want to mention. The final thing that I want to mention is what?